And we are live here to chat about tonight's episode of Arrow. It was episode 21 of season 6, and it was called The Ties That Bind. Um, some weeks I have a guest, some weeks I don't. Last week I did, so this week I don't, which means you all are the guests, which means most of the questions that I normally pose, such as what are your pros and cons and what would you rate the episode and all of those sort of things, I'm just going to be posing to you and talking about what you guys think. So let's kick it off with what's usually always our first question, which is what would you rate tonight's episode on a scale from 1 to 5? 1 being it was terrible and I hated it and I didn't like any of it, and 5 being I loved almost every second of it. Where would you guys put yourselves? And while you're thinking about that, I'll just go ahead and give you my rating. Well, I'm going to look at the chat. Amanda says, hello, I'm here. Hello, Amanda. I'm glad you are here. I will go ahead and why am I having feedback? Okay, there we go. I turned it off so I don't have to simultaneously listen to my voice while I talk. You guys know what I'm talking about. You never want to hear your own voice. It always sounds different. Anyways, my rating for tonight, I would give it a solid 4.5. I loved almost every second of it, and it's very easy for me to come up with pros. I would be hard for me to come up with a favorite scene just because I don't know what I would pick as my favorite scene. There were excellent moments of dialogue. There were fantastic action sequences, and there was only 1.5, maybe 2 real negatives I would say I had about the episode, and they're not unique to this episode. They're things that are ongoing across the whole season. So I don't have a unique complaint to this episode. I only have some plot questions or things that I have issues across the whole season with. Oh, looking in the chat, Amanda gives it a 4.5 and Stormy gives it a 4.5. Oh my god. Okay, so you guys are all on the same page as me. We're all loving this episode. Amanda says, I loved Lila. I'm seriously in love. I loved Lila in this episode. I loved her relationship with Diggle. I loved her presence in the action scenes. I loved her friendship with Felicity. I feel like Lila is exactly what the show has kind of been needing for a while this season. The camera just went out of focus, but that's okay. There we go. There you go. You can see me again. She's exactly what the show's been needing so far, with a bit more of that sort of grounded, cutthroat presence. There's been this problem, I think, where there's a very easy solution to Dragon, and that's to kill him. He is mortal, and as much as they keep saying he has an army, he doesn't have a willing army. He has them all blackmailed. Anybody could be freed from that if you would just shoot him, right? And I feel like if anybody would do that, it'd be Lila. So I'm enjoying her presence. Stormy also says, I loved my 2 badass couples, Dyla and Elicity. It was really fun seeing them all interact and seeing them work through the ups and downs of being in battle together. Kanisha says 4.5. I loved almost everything except Diaz scenes. Yeah, I've got some issues with Diaz as well. Amanda says I can't stand Curtis anymore, but Lila made it better. Curtis was a struggle for me because I felt for the guy this episode. He had his boyfriend, which I thought was such a cute plot for him. The police officer that he was dating, that's cool. He had him attacked, or Diaz had him attacked, and Curtis was there. And I felt for him because that's kind of a struggle. And I don't think we've had to see, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've had to see Curtis struggle with having any of his partners, his past husband, Paul, in the line of fire or in danger. Tell me if Paul's ever been in danger and I'm forgetting that. So I could see why that would be sort of a first time struggle for him. Whereas the rest of the team, I think, have all had moments where they've had family or significant others in danger. And this was his first time. So I think he came across as quite young and inexperienced in that moment in how to handle it and how to handle those emotions, just because I don't think that he has felt that or had to deal with that before. Yeah, Amanda says Curtis was showing off Felicity's loft. Yeah, Stormy says Curtis makes every scene about himself. He did come across as quite young. I'm frustrated with a lot of things in Curtis's story. I would like to just sort of blame it on the writing because I just really have hope that out of anybody, Curtis is the character that could pull through, that they could kind of redeem. Because I think if they were to take him more the hardware route, differentiate his skills from Felicity, and I don't know. I'm saying this, but then I'm like, he hacked Diggle's chip, didn't apologize for it. He was really hypocritical about the tracking issue and was kind of celebrating the demise of the Queen family. So maybe Curtis can't be redeemed. I don't know. Yeah, Stormy says Paul was never in danger. Amanda says Paul might have been in danger. There was a stair scene when Paul discovered Curtis was a vigilante and Curtis was shot. Yeah. Maybe he was in a little bit of danger, but I think this was a bit of a new moment for Curtis, or it was supposed to come across as a bit of a new moment. So I was kind of understanding in that sense. But I already mentioned my struggle with Diaz, and he coming across as sort of a not very powerful villain that they're trying to tell me is powerful. My other complaint is the new Team Arrow component and how they're just going to great lengths, literally blowing up OTA's lair. The story is going that way. NTA did not blow up OTA's lair in order to force OTA to sort of reunite with them and rely on them for their resources, like their lair. It feels like a stretch. I don't know. I'm not feeling it. Kanisha says, I don't know why Curtis thought he could take on Diaz by himself. He's never won any fight in hand-to-hand combat without his tech. Yes, and I also don't know why he just wouldn't use his tech. Like, why not just, like, explode a T-sphere into the guy's head? Or non-lethal, explode it into his, shoulder. Like, why hasn't some appendage been blown off at this point? Why have they not fired a tranquilizer dart into Diaz? Like, what, use any non-lethal force. Why have they just kept letting him go? I don't get it. Explain it to me. Like, explain to me how this guy keeps getting away, because I don't see him as powerful. I see him as just not being stopped. Whatever. Let's get into some of the highlights. I want to hear what you loved about the episode. I want to hear what your favorite moment was. What scenes are sort of standing out to you as like, this is what I loved. This is what I want to see more of in the finale. This is, sort of the shot or the dialogue or whatever that really stands out to you. I'll start. I loved getting to see sort of everybody out in the field together actually doing something. So I know there was a lot of conflict about Felicity and to an extent Lila even being in danger, or any of them really, since they're all parents and they're all needed and all that sort of stuff. There was that conflict about them being in danger, but every time that they had to go out into the field, it made perfect sense. It made perfect sense why Lila was the one who needed to walk into the police station. It made perfect sense for Felicity, who knows where the tech was being held, to sort of sneak in and grab it while the rest of them kind of were fighting and creating cover. Essentially, it made sense for them all to be out in the field, and it was fun to see them be out in the field together. There's the danger and people are getting hurt and people are fighting and all that sort of stuff, and then there's in-team fighting because of it, but it's fun to see that. That was the kind of action we like to see. When Oliver and Felicity also get confronted by Diaz on the stairs, it's so high stakes and it's so beautifully shot. There's two moments that are beautifully shot when they're actually running out of the building and there's the explosion behind them and then all their team gets there. That's such a great moment. Fantastic. Kudos to everybody involved. I don't know why I'm clapping with like a lipstick in my hand. And then prior to that, when they are on the stairs and they're kind of choking from all of the stuff in the air, and they're kind of leaning on each other for a while, and then he's also carrying her for a while, and there's sort of this light behind them and this dust in the air, and it's like high stakes, like somebody could drop dead at any time. Beautifully shot, however. Loved that. Okay, let me see what you guys loved. All right. Bruno points out Curtis is Laurel 2.0. Ooh, those are strong words. But perhaps I just wanted better for him. I wanted him to be this cool techie guy, and I wanted him to have this great romance, and I thought it'd be so fun. And he represents a lot of things that this show doesn't have a lot of, both in terms of race, sexuality, etc. That I just really want. I know you shouldn't root for somebody just because of their race or sexuality or whatever, but I just really wanted him to survive and be this great character. And unfortunately, I don't love the writing for him. I'm with you. Amanda says Lila was the MVP for me. I loved seeing Felicity with Lila. Yes, Amanda. Stormy says I loved Felicity telling Oliver we're married now. There's no being alone. And Dig telling Oliver that he didn't mean for Oliver to throw away everyone who matters to him. Those were both really good talks and really good setups, I think, for the finale as well. Kanisha said when Felicity and Oliver argued, they both had a good point. Oliver wanted to protect Felicity, and Felicity explained why they're supposed to be a team. I'm sensing a theme in everybody's favorite moments. And Stormy says, as long as they're alive, Felicity and Oliver will fight for each other. Yeah, they've really set that up really nicely, I think, going into the finale, which is why it's going to be such high stakes, I think, when you guys probably have already guessed what Miss Amanda Watson's other stipulation is, haven't you? Let me know in the chat if you have. When Oliver goes to Samantha at the end of tonight's episode and says, hey, might need to pull in the big guns, might need to get the FBI involved in this local government issue because the city's under siege. And she says, okay, first you got to say out loud, you're the Green Arrow. And also, and then they don't really tell us what the second stipulation is. I'm assuming it's going to be she wants him to serve time in jail for it, for the crimes he's committed, whether they are his fault or justified or not. He has committed crimes. He's, misappropriated city funds, and he's gone outside the laws, and he's colluded with people in the police force going outside the law, and this, that, and the other, right? Avoided due process for whatever. He's done a lot of the things that the prosecutor pointed out last week, and some of them he hasn't. And I'm guessing she wants him to serve time. What do you guys think? Do you think that's what she's going to make him do? Oh, Amanda throws in another favorite moment saying, Oliver telling Felicity she is a parent. She is a good parent. She's quite a lovely stepmother, isn't she? She's the exact opposite of all of the evil stepmothers and all the fairy tales. She's like the fairy godmother stepmother. And Stormy says, high five to William telling his dad to kick Dragon's ass. Right? Like, I feel like at this point, like, William knows what needs to be done. Like, the guy just needs to be taken down. Like, does nobody have anything that would just knock him out at least? And Stormy says she does agree that Oliver would make a deal with the FBI to save the city. Yeah, that's what we see at the end of the episode, which I think is really interesting, and it's an honorable thing to do. The thing to keep in mind when it comes, I think, to the team doing things to save the city that are illegal is the team has never pretended that what they were doing is not illegal. They've never pretended that they just didn't know the law or that they weren't aware. Felicity knows she's hacking the FBI. Diggle knows when he's using police information that he legally should not have. Oliver knows when he is misusing his role as the mayor. And they're willing to do that anyways for what they consider to be the greater good, understanding that they could go to jail for it, just like Felicity said during the trial last week, just add it to the other list of felonies I've committed. They know they've done bad things. It's not that they wanted to, it's that they were willing to take that risk, the risk of going to jail, in order to save lives. And now that risk is sort of being cashed in upon. They all could go to jail, or more likely, Oliver will go to jail in order to keep the rest of them out of jail. And there's an element of heroism to that too. And I know that's kind of a gray area, but I think that's what they're giving to us in this show, which does often deal more with gray areas than more so than a lot of the other, DCCW shows, which are a bit more black and white when it comes to our heroes. when we saw back in the big crossover that some of the other heroes weren't going to kill their evil counterparts or weren't even trying or preferred not to or even let their evil counterparts go like the Flash did. We saw that in contrast to Oliver absolutely no questions asked killing his evil counterpart because he's willing to do that, and it's not because he thinks killing is good, it's because he's willing to become a murderer or willing to become a lawbreaker in order to save other people. That can be considered wrong, like Samantha, a character I love, considers that wrong and thinks he should go to jail, and that makes perfect sense. That's sort of the trade-off because I think they're trying to get into the idea that heroism is not just sacrificing yourself for others by putting yourself on the line for others. It can also be, a sort of a level of civil disobedience or the hacktivism that Felicity used to do or things like that that could, and you could end up in jail, but you could have also saved lives in the process. Or maybe there's a problem with the law in the first place that got the city to the place where this, madman, mobster, whatever, has been able to take it over. There's clearly something that would need to change in the legal system to prevent that. I don't know. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, let's see what you guys think. Stormy says Oliver is a hero because he'll do what needs to be done. It's one of many reasons I prefer him over Barry. I strongly prefer him over Barry. I also am not so sure I would consider Barry a hero often, although Barry had some decent moments in the last episode. He was all right. It was probably because he was surrounded by some of the best people in the show. He had Joe West and Caitlin Snow around him, but this is not a Flash after show. It's an Arrow after show, so I'll save my rant on that. But I'm with you. Barry only acts like a hero when he's actually surrounded by heroes. Kanisha says, I like the breakfast for dinner scene before the shooting started. I missed Felicity scenes like this. I miss their quiet moments. Yeah, it was so nice because it also gives you that ominous feel. I think anybody can sort of identify with that moment where, perhaps you're not about to die or go to jail, but sometimes, you get this bit of quiet before the storm where you can't do anything but just sort of wait it out. Maybe you're going to get good or bad news, or maybe you're going to go have to do something awful and there's nothing else you can do except for just wait. And so you just try to be happy and make the best of it, even though there's that awful tension hanging over you. And I think that's what that was trying to replicate when we see the Queen family breakfast scene. I think it was lovely. I thought it was relatable. And I thought it set up why this is such high stakes, what it is that Oliver and the team are trying to preserve. And it's those moments. And those were contrasted with those family moments that the rest of the team members had, that I think we identify a little bit more with the Queen family side because we know those characters better, we care about those characters more. But when we saw the rest of the team have theirs as well, especially Diggle and Lila, because I think I care about them as well, and I think a lot of viewers do. And we also saw Renee and Zoe, we saw Curtis and his boyfriend, etc. We see sort of what these team members are fighting for, and I thought that was nice, although I cared about the Queens and the Diggles the most. And Stormy says, I was happy that Anatoly warned Oliver before his family was attacked. Yeah, they've got a bit of a brotherhood, I think, still hanging on there. I think Anatoly still has a bit of a chip on his shoulder that he has just become somebody's minion, and he's directing that anger at Oliver when that anger should actually be directed at the writers, but it's fine. Maybe that's a bit too meta for him. Maybe he needs to think about that more. All right. And a previous comment, Oliver will make a deal with the FBI to protect the city and the team. Yeah, I think his final thing of going to jail to protect the team is probably what's going to reunite the team. But like I said earlier, and I think a lot of people in the chat mentioned earlier, I don't necessarily need this team reunited. I love Oliver being bros with Diggle. I love the Queen family, Oliver, Felicity, Rachel, William. I love all of that, and I love all of those people working together. The NTA, whatever thing, they can exist wherever they're existing. They can save the city wherever they're saving the city. I don't need them to be bros with the Diggles and the Queen family. They can work together when they have to. I don't need them to all be on one team. They can be thankful that Oliver didn't kill him when they came and attacked him and attacked his friends and family, Diggle and Felicity. They can be grateful that he's probably going to go to jail for them, and grateful that he was so forgiving of Renee getting them into this mess and Renee trying to act like a little mobster and Renee causing a decent amount of the problems this season, arguably just as many as Dragons caused. They could be grateful about that, but I don't need them to be friends. Just my take. Probably is not going to be the way it goes. Probably they will try to all be bros. Don't love it though. Don't have to. Matt Shamlu says, "Why do you think Oliver is who do you think Oliver's speaking to in that shot of him with the hood off? Doesn't look like any regular." Matt, are you talking about a shot of him in the promo? Because I think I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember like the outline of that person's head. But we do know in the finale that there will be a couple people showing up who are not regulars from the show. If you don't want spoilers, then like tune this out for a second. But we know that Sarah from Legends and possibly other Legends will be showing up, and I'm not sure who all else. So there could be some both good and bad guys who could show up in that moment. Also, did anybody else catch the shot where you couldn't really tell whether Siren was hugging Lance or stabbing him? We know Lance is leaving, so I'm rooting for stabbing. Stormy says, "I'm pissed at Diaz for a lot of reasons, like that quadrant lady was more captivating as a villain than him, and she's just dead." Agreed with you, Stormy. Strongly agree. I think there's been quite a few people so far. I should stop swinging my legs so the camera stops shaking. I think there's been a few villains so far, certainly on this show, and then in this season alone, that have been more interesting than Mr. Diaz. All right, let's see. Matt Shamlu asks, "Do you think Diaz will die next episode or go into season 7?" That's a great question. I'll tell you that hope is the only thing that keeps us human, and I'm strongly hoping that Diaz dies. Not because I need some dramatic villain death, but because I need a better villain for season 7. I do not think I could sit through an entire other season of him playing Godfather again. You know what? I take it back. I would sit through another season of him doing that because we have Beth Schwartz coming in as the showrunner for season 7. I think that's going to be fucking amazing. And I would absolutely continue to watch no matter what villain they throw at me. But please, dear God, don't let it be Diaz. Tell me what you guys think, though. Are you seeing something in Diaz that I'm not seeing? By all means, like explain it to me, explain it to grandma. Like, what is it in Diaz that we're supposed to see? Like, talk me through this if you have some sort of, positive response to him as a villain. By all means, I want to hear it. Amanda says the quadrant lady's name is casamento, which means marriage in Portuguese. Ooh, that's really interesting. First of all, that's a fantastic name. Second of all, is that supposed to be some sort of symbolism that like marriage and family and these connections and stuff are part of what the villains are attacking or part of what's creating, the risk for these heroes? Ooh, that's interesting. Thank you, Amanda. I really enjoy that facto. Stormy says, "I do agree with you last week on Arrow Squad that Diaz has too much power. It's just not believable to me." Yeah, Diaz has this weird thing where it's too much power, but we're never told what that power is. We're just told he has power. Like he's super powerful. He's so strong. Like in what way? I don't know. He just is. Like what's his power? There's nothing stopping someone from shooting him in the head. He's not that powerful. Certainly not powerful enough to stand up to a meta. Listen, I'm not even a Siren level lover. Like, let me level with you here. I don't love Siren. I don't love metas on the show. I don't love meta villains. I don't love meta heroes. The closest I ever got to liking one was probably Ragman, and even then, I didn't love Ragman's powers for Arrow. However, you've put me in this, universe where metas exist, and you're trying to tell me that Diaz is somehow unable to be killed by Siren. You better explain to me how. Like, I'm watching the show. I'm suspending disbelief. I'll believe whatever it is you tell me. If you want to tell me he has some sort of psychic power, if you want to tell me he's just blackmailed every single person flawlessly with no loops, no whatever, you just gotta tell me what that is. Tell me why he's not dead, because everything I know about this universe tells me that he could be dead so fast. Dead or tied up or captured or whatever so fast. Why is it everybody in Star City's following him? Because I'm not seeing some special leadership skills. I'm not seeing some special charm. I'm not seeing where is he getting this power from? You got to show me the power, not just tell me the power. That's the problem I'm having with this. They've overpowered him without telling me what the power is, and the finale's next week. So like, you're running out of time. You got about 43 more minutes to tell me what the power is before I write this off as like maybe he's right around the same level as like Damien Dark in the area of like villains I'll forget about, and he's nowhere near the like Slade and Prometheus level, and certainly not the kind of villain where I'm going to sympathize with and want back the way I am with Antihero Huntress. Does that make sense? That's kind of where I'm at with it. But like, let's see what y'all are thinking. Amanda says, no, Diaz is definitely just a thug. Right? He's just a thug. Like, I don't even like Renee, and I feel like Renee could take him out, right? Matt Shamlou says, I think Diaz is just supposed to be an evil gangbanger. True, he's not like Chase or Slade, but he's just an insecure guy who wants power, almost like a penguin from the show Gotham. It's a good comparison. And I think you're right. I'm just not sure why someone like him is so hard for the team to take down. Like, why? Why did the police force all go along with him? Did he blackmail that many people? Or is just the whole police force that corrupt? Like, is the actual villain supposed to be that the whole city is just that corrupt, and it's not that they're blackmailed, it's that they all want to go along with it? And is this supposed to be this underlying message of like, most cops are corrupt and most governments are corrupt and most systems are corrupt? Like, is that what they're supposed to tell me? Because I haven't been told, like I haven't heard that as the message from the show. If that is the message, that's fair. Like, we can explore that in the last 43 minutes, I guess. But I'm just not getting what that is. But I totally agree with you, Matt, that that's what they're saying he is. Stormy says it's not believable to me. The rest of the quadrant wouldn't have just taken out this Godfather wannabe. Yeah, like again, the quadrant I guess could have been the villain, and that would have been maybe more believable. But what interest would they have in this specific city? Amanda says he killed the first member of the quadrant in front of bodyguards who did nothing. That's not believable at all. Very true. And how could he plan for Caden's son's death 1 year prior to him being released? Bonkers. Yeah, it's just, yeah, that's what I mean by overpowered. It's like they're trying to make him seem like he's super smart or, one step ahead of whatever. And I'm not buying it, fam. Stormy says, did they have a problem with corrupt cops in seasons past? They have had problems with corrupt cops, and this show is supposed to be pretty realistic, so I get it. Corrupt police forces, that's realistic. All right, I'm listening, I'm buying that. Like, corruption in government, corruption in leadership, corruption in city power, cool, I'm following. Did this guy just bring it out of everybody? Is the problem everybody else around him was already corrupt and they were just waiting for somebody to come in and let out their corrupt side? Because if that's the issue, then why are we saving the city? What is there to save? Like, if the city doesn't want them, they want to be corrupt. Like, peace out, head off to Panama. Like, I don't get it. But Shamlou says, with NTA coming back next year, what's your prediction with Dinah and Laurel 2? Yeah, my prediction is one of them is going to end up on Legends, and I bet that'll be Laurel. What do you think? Because I think Dinah's going to stay on Arrow. If you can only have one, which one would you guys want? You can keep one. You can keep Miss Dinah Drake, or you can keep Miss Black Siren. Which one do you want to keep? Not that women should be in competition with each other, but in this specific case, they have literally the same identity. So if you can only keep one, which could you keep? Stormy says, Dinah could stay, Laurel can go back to her Earth. Fair. Matt Shamlou says, I doubt they will kill Dinah. I like her, minus the NTA drama. Yeah, I don't think Dinah fits NTA. I think NTA brings out the worst in all three of them. I'll blame Renee for most of that, and I don't think she fits them. And I don't think Renee or Curtis show her much respect. P Fruit 0916 says, I agree. I think the quadrant would have taken out Diaz for them to use the docks to transport their goods through Star City. I absolutely agree they would have. And then they could have taken over Star City, and that would have perhaps been more believable. Stormy says, poor Sarah's getting stuck with Siren. I feel so bad for her. I do feel bad for her, but then again, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. You just have that sibling who's a villain from Earth 2, and you gotta try to make them be good, I guess. Like, relatable, right? Just kidding. Kanisha says, I prefer Dinah Drake. Amanda says, Legends is overcrowded. I bet we'll have to suffer through Laurel 2 for one more year. Wow, you're all so pumped for Siren. It's almost as if they didn't write her well this season. Matt Shamlou says, Felicity's cool. Dinah and Oliver do seem like they'd be a badass couple. I don't even like Dinah and Oliver, like, speaking to each other, because I think that their, like, issues and, like, leadership issues are, like, insecure. So I don't think I'd like to see them like being in a relationship either. Like they're both pretty. I'll grant you that. But like Dinah and Oliver bring out the worst in each other and not in the cute like comic book soap opera y way where it's like fight and then like fuck it out sort of thing. It's like in the you don't want to see it. It's like uncomfortable, you know, when people just like don't get along and you want to leave the room. Like it's like, ooh, like let's cut to commercials. They treat each other terribly. He yelled at her for trying to betray the team. And then when it turned out to be Renee, he was instantly like, "Oh, okay, like I guess I forgive him." It was the dumbest thing. Like he doesn't respect her. He doesn't treat her well. Their leadership skills and communication styles terrible. I think that and like burn me at the stake for saying this and don't take this the wrong way cuz like I adore Lila, I love the Diggle family, whatever, but I think in terms of like the Green Arrow Black Canary dynamic, I think Dinah as Black Canary and Diggle as Green Arrow was the closest thing the show's gotten to the Green Arrow Black Canary fighting like buddies out in the field dynamic. Not saying it as a couple, not being a homewrecker, whatever. You get what I'm saying? Anybody else feel that, or is that just me? P Fruit says Dinah and Oliver are too antagonistic to be a couple. Yeah, it just be like this show's like it's a CW show, so it's a little bit soap opera already. But like you put Dinah and Oliver together, ooh, that would be a real soap opera, not in the good way. P Fruit also says so we can expect more Black Siren on Arrow. Yeah, probably. I mean, if they wrote her well, the show could use a villainess, and she's much better as a villainess than a hero. So I mean, come on, Beth Schwartz, come through, write her well. Amanda says Mark Guggenheim said on a podcast, Dinah and Oliver won't happen because they won't divorce Elicity. I mean, that's nice. I completely would love for that to be true. I hope that's true. I mean, does Oliver really need to go through more like family breakups again? No, probably not. Like, I feel like he's got enough under his belt there. Matt says, "Good point. She did sneak around with Vince when he tried to kill him. I'd be pissed about that." Yeah, I mean, I was a little pissed at Dinah from keeping it from the team. I was mostly just pissed at Dinah from keeping it from. I was pissed at Dinah for keeping it from Diggle. Wow, a bit of a tongue twister, but I got it out there in the end. Because they had just had that whole no secrets thing, and Diggle told her about his hand and that whole thing, and it's like, why wouldn't you tell? Like, why? It also made me like, I was annoyed at her, but I was also like, but why aren't you telling him? Like, why are you keeping the love of your life from him? Like, is there some other reason? And does that reason have to do with the fact that you guys always talk in dark corners while piano music is playing? Like, that really just kind of made me sus. And I was wondering if that was the reason why, but it was really just because she, like, as far as we're told, it was really just because she wouldn't tell the team her secret. And so I get why they would be pissed about that. Diggle more so than Oliver, because it was literally not Oliver's lane and he barely knows her. So I just didn't like the way he was treating her in that moment, contrasted to the way he treated Renee. But I completely am with you that she and Renee both kind of betrayed the team. Renee's was just more severe and backhanded. Amanda says the closest was Sarah and Oliver in season 2. In terms of fighting together, yes, but Sarah and Oliver in season 2 definitely had no like I don't think they had that buddy chemistry. You know what I mean? Like when we saw it's also I don't know if you guys ever watch like military shows or anything like that where you see like this sort of like soldier buddy like buddy in arms, brother in arms, but in this case they're not brother. You know what I mean? Thing where they're like out in the field, they have each other's back and they sort of have this innate understanding. Dinah and Diggle to me both kind of translate as soldiers on screen, and so they have that, and it's a different kind of chemistry, friendship chemistry. Don't get me wrong, not a homewrecker. Disclaimer every time I say this, it's a different kind of chemistry than what you would see in just like your typical like Thea and Roy or whatever, like CW couple. It's just a little bit different. It's a little more understated in terms of friendship. To me, I don't really care that much because the friendship I'm most invested in for Diggle is Diggle and Felicity. I love the whole friendship and brother sister thing they have going on. But if we need that, which we don't, but if we do need that sort of Black Canary Green Arrow fighting out in the field together shtick, I think that Diggle and Dinah was where that was at for me. Bruno says, I don't think I can handle Siren next season. Put on a positive face, Bruna. We have a different showrunner, and like maybe she'll be written as a great villain. Who knows? Maybe not. Stormy says if she's written better as a villain, I can maybe stomach it. If Siren continues the way she's written, then no thanks, go away. I mean, I can give you that. P Fruit says the writers already met with Katie to discuss season 7. All right. Stormy says, I mean, Cammy, did you see David Ramsey in that tank top? Dinah having a crush on Dig is true. If true, is understandable. I mean, it is understandable. I did see that. You're right. Again, in the hypothetical, not a home wrecker. Love Lila. Best part of tonight's episode. Love the Diggle family. This is all hypothetical. Stormy says, I just saw Sarah and Oliver as two extremely damaged people that fell into a familiar relationship. Yeah, and I mean, Sarah was in love with Nissa, so you know, that was for me, my ship for Sarah was Sarah and Nissa, so she and Oliver were just bros, and then when they hooked up, that was just kind of weird. It made the whole thing kind of weird for me. Matt Shamalu says my favorite friendship, chemistry, and Arrow will always be Oliver and Anatoly. Good taste. That's a good one. He says, do you think we will see much of that next episode? Will Anatoly die? Will Bratva help Oliver? Ooh, good questions. A great sequence of questions. Yes, I do think we will see some fantastic brotherhood moments between Oliver and Anatoly next episode. I sincerely hope Anatoly doesn't die, because if he did die, he would die in such a bad season for him, because he was written as like a minion this season for most of the part, and I kind of hated that. So I'm hoping he lives through all of this, but put a pin in it. And Bratva helping Oliver in the whole, like, you know, Dragon has an army and Oliver needs an army. That would be fantastic. And we would get to see that whole Bratva captain vibe for Oliver again. And that was so well received by the audience in the year where that was the flashback. So I think that would be brilliant. Love the way you think, Matt. Other than you wanting Dinah and Oliver together, we'll have to agree to disagree on that one. Amanda says, worst thing was a new writer saying she can't wait to write for Siren because the writer's a lawyer too. Someone tell her Siren is not a lawyer. She must have just meant in the metaphorical sense that the character is sort of a. I feel like, not to be an apologist here, but I think for Laurel, the OG Earth One Laurel, that character's strength was being sort of a cutthroat, cold lawyer. You know what I mean? Almost an anti-hero in a way, where very similar vibes to what we see in Samantha Watson this season, where she's sort of by the book, you know, would put Oliver in jail, is not here for anybody's nonsense, and is not here for vigilantes. I think that was always what Laurel should have been, and then they just kind of messed that up because they needed other dynamics that were questionable and ill-advised. But I think if they had kept Laurel on that path, she would have been this sort of cold anti-hero foil, which would have played up to the fact that, you know, as everybody said, the actress plays a villain better, and we could have played into that anti-hero aspect of it, and it would have been really interesting, especially considering Oliver and the rest of the team did have a lot of areas where they were going against the law or crossing lines, and it would have been interesting to see the foil from the side of sort of extreme justice. Whereas when we look at, and that was a lawyer-based thing, whereas when we look at Siren, we see the exact opposite use of the skills that come with being a lawyer. With Siren, we see more of the manipulation of the law, manipulation of human emotion, and manipulation of certain ties, like familial ties or partner ties or business ties. And she'll use that for her advantage. So it's very much like, whereas Earth One Laurel would have been an almost too by the book lawyer, Earth X or Earth 2 Laurel or whatever we're working with, Siren is like a corrupt lawyer, like a manipulative anti-hero or villain type of character, just there to serve her own good. No ties to anyone, manipulating the law being actual law, and also like societal law, interpersonal relationships for her own good. So I get that aspect of both of them. I just think both of them have been so so questionably written. There have been so many moments, namely the last time we saw Siren when she faced off against Dragon and nothing became of it. And that had been built up this entire season. And it was, I don't know, I said this on the podcast, I don't know how that scene even made it out of the writer's room. I don't know how that ever got made. That was horribly written for both characters. I I find that despite having the setup of in theory these should be interesting, if not like definitely not likable, but interesting character concepts, absolutely does not make it that way. And so that can be frustrating when you're trying to you hope for a good female villain or a good female antihero, and instead I don't find myself attaching to either one of these characters other than for the sake of the plot, because and it's characters like Huntress or Sin or anybody else that has come up on the show that we can attach to a little bit more. Anatoly as well as a bit of an antihero, because they kind of have this personal element to them and a consistency where we see them as a person rather than just a ever-changing concept that changes depending on where the plot needs to go. I don't know. Hopefully that makes sense. All right. Amanda says the worst. Okay. Stormy says Siren didn't graduate high school, so I don't see how she could fake being a lawyer. Yeah, I don't think she would. I mean, it's not like it's another Mike Ross from Suits pretending to be a lawyer situation. Matt says the quadrant seems well dead. Do you believe they'll be back in season 7 or a new big bad? If you don't think so, who do you think? I'm thinking we will see Talia and Evelyn come back. Well, it's interesting you mentioned Evelyn because the actress who played Evelyn was jokingly saying on social media recently, like, "Am I still alive?" I don't think she even knows. That would be interesting. I did like Evelyn both as a good guy and a bad guy, but more so as a bad guy. Talia would be interesting as well. I'm okay with the quadrant being a factor in the next season. I just don't want that to be dragon centric. We don't need another Godfather filled season, and I definitely couldn't take it if we're always given this sort of premise of, well, Dragon has an army and we've never seen an army before. They were literally saying Oliver's never faced an army before in promotion. Have you watched the show? Oliver's faced just so many armies on this show. Are you kidding me? The Mirakuru army, or the Ra's al Ghul's army, the literal League of Assassins. You're trying to tell me that Star City, blackmailed police force is supposed to be a bigger deal than League of Assassins? Are you kidding me? Anyways, sorry, little nitpicky thing. But to answer your question, quadrant can stay. Dragon centric big bad villain thing. Ooh, if that's what we got to work with in season 7, I may need a drink first. Rengoku says, I feel like Talia could be an amazing female villain if they gave her a better motivation than killing her dad. I mean, Nissa basically became Ollie's friend after he killed Roz. Very good point. I want the villain to have a good motivation. Strongly agree with you that there. And Rengoku also says, fun fact, the guy that Jordan pointed out a few weeks ago, Cyrus Broderick, is the only quadrant member alive. A pretty big Green Arrow rebirth villain. Take it away, Cyrus. Be our new big bad. Take us into a golden age of hero versus villainism. Matt says, I guess Dinah doesn't seem to want to hate Laurel as much since it hasn't been brought up. Yeah, I mean, it's either like they conveniently just like let that plot point die, which, okay, whatever, or, just like how NTA and OTA are supposed to have had their feelings, kind of wrapped up in a bow and sent off. Maybe that's what they're trying to insinuate with Dinah and Laurel, or Dinah and Siren. I always call her Siren instead of Laurel because it's easier to differentiate which one I'm talking about. Amanda says Gotham is using Talia, so we'll probably never see her again. Ooh. Well, Riverdale mentioned Gotham, so I guess all DC references are free for all across all shows, eh? P Fruit says, I want Joe, Wilson, and the Jackals. Ooh, interesting idea. Stormy says, Oliver has faced an army every season. Jaden Patel says, preach about the army thing. Right? I mean, if you've been watching the show longer than a season, you have seen an army. We've seen it. And it's not that I don't want to see an army again. It's just, we've seen an army. Show me a different army. Don't tell me you've never given me army before and that this is some sort of new thing. It's not. We know better. Rengoku says even Roy and Laurel faced Brick's army in season 3. Yeah, there's just There's been a lot, and I'm sorry, I've kept everybody over. I feel like we always go longer on the episodes where you guys are the guest rather than having a guest, because I'm like really a stickler for time when I have a guest because I don't want to waste everybody's time. But here I am, just like, you guys have some great thoughts, so we'll keep chatting about them for a couple more minutes, then I'll let you all go. Matt says, I think this army is supposed to be controversial because they are going up against city officials and police officers. You can't just kill them, you can kill the others. That's a good point. I mean, in this case, Dragon is not a city official or a police officer. So if the conflict is supposed to be that you don't want to be a cop killer slash politician killer, that doesn't apply to Dragon. And when I say take him down, when I say take Dragon down, it doesn't even necessarily have to be killing. Although I don't think Oliver still has a killing ban, so I don't know why Dragon would be an exception to that. Again, just this season in the Big Cross, or was it this season in the Big Crossover? Yeah, it was. Oliver killed his evil counterpart because he is willing to, if necessary, kill, even though he doesn't want to and he sees it as wrong. Just like he is willing to, if necessary, break city laws, even though he does not want to and does think it's wrong and would go to jail for it. That's part of what he's willing to do. The Green Arrow as a concept is largely inspired by obviously the concept of Robin Hood. That's something that we've seen dropped around. I mean, we all know, we've seen the posters and the comic references and all that sort of stuff that they've made in this show. And the idea of breaking the law for the greater good is rooted in this specific mythos. That's what the point is. The point is always that the concept of Green Arrow had this whole social justice history where the idea of breaking the law, changing the law, civil disobedience, etc., was all rooted in what he did, and he was always willing to take that risk of going to jail because of it. And that's why he becomes mayor, to also sort of change the law and alter that and make it so that that sort of level of being a vigilante is not necessary. And we see that in some ways translated in the show, but we don't often see him facing the legal penalties for his actions. We see him facing other consequences for his actions, such as family deaths, relationships falling apart, things like that. And now we're seeing the legal ramifications of his actions. And I think it's interesting. I don't mind that. I don't mind Samantha as a character. I don't mind any of that. I find that to be interesting that there's this element of heroism to him being willing to go to jail in order to do what he thinks is right. And I think it's very rooted in what Green Arrow has done. Carrie says, I just got here, so sad. Carrie, you can rewatch it and then send me all your thoughts as well. He also says, I'm assuming Diaz's goons haven't turned against him for the same reason Negan's goons haven't turned against him in The Walking Dead. Yeah, it's just that convenient plot point of the villain needs, certain hired goons. Amanda says they couldn't kill the Mirakuru victims also. True. So similarly, when Mirakuru took over the victims, they couldn't just kill them because there was a good person inside. In this case, they can't kill the people being blackmailed because there is a literal good person inside, other than the ones who are actually corrupt. But the person that they can take down is Dragon. And I'm just kind of curious why and how they haven't so far. Rangoku says, prediction the season ends with Cyrus Broderick killing Dragon in prison or custody, just like what Dragon did to Kate and James. Yeah, the sort of if you wanna be the king, you gotta kill the king type of situation. A line said on Good Girls, a fantastic show that got renewed for season 2. Does anybody watch that? Is anybody else excited? Amanda says, actually, Green Arrow was created because they thought Batman was a very dark character that could be rejected by the audience. They made a goofy billionaire vigilante as a backup. Yes, but there is a strong and obvious and overt reference to Robin Hood in the entire setup of the Green Arrow. The costume, what he does, the social justice focus, everything. That is sort of the story behind the story, I guess. But it also is very similar to Batman. There's nothing original under the sun. Rengoku says, I love my funny comic book Oliver Queen, but Arrow's dark version is awesome as well. Strongly agree. Stormy says, I love Good Girls. Shout out. That's a fantastic show. Over Arrow hiatus. Watch that show. You'll love it. Thank me later. Also, it's a 10 p.m. time slot, so it can get even sort of darker and raunchier than Arrow. Congrats. Enjoy. When Goku says Tommy's human target's Green Arrow reminded me of the comic book version. Ooh, good catch, Rengoku. I would agree with that. That actually was extremely comic booky in tone, in dialogue, and everything. Matt Shamalu says, "Do you think Diggle is going to be as much of a regular as he is currently with Argus? I do feel his plotline is kind of worn out, but they can't kill him like Thea." I find Diggle to be a very necessary, integral part to balancing who Oliver is and also being a part of Oliver's family. I also feel that way about Thea too, and I always Thea was not like my favorite character or anything. She was good. She just was never my favorite, not in my top 3/4 even maybe. But I found her to be so necessary to represent this concept of family around him. And I think as Thea left, they had to beforehand and afterhand build this concept of family around Oliver, the Queen family, bring in Reza, somebody we hadn't when she was brought in the season, we hadn't seen her since the pilot. So bringing in Reza, bringing in William, bringing in Felicity as not just like a girlfriend but a wife, and establishing this family around Oliver was necessary with Thea leaving. And I think with Tommy dying, having Diggle there as sort of this brother was necessary as well. And if they were to take Diggle away, first of all, I'd be heartbroken. Like I can't even imagine the show without him. But it would also there'd be a gaping hole that they would need to fill. I have not seen them filling that in advance, so I have to believe, fingers crossed, that they're not getting rid of Diggle. And I just can't imagine the show without. There's just sort of there's that OTA thing. There's Oliver, Diggle, and Felicity. What would the show be without them? So I kind of hope not. Carrie says we all need Lila. We need all the Lila and Dig in the field we can get. Absolutely, I love seeing Lila and Diggle work together out in the field, play the different roles they have, and they have a very. It's interesting with Lila and Diggle. They have a very strikingly different morality from each other. They have a different approach to heroism. Lila's a lot more cutthroat, a lot more ends justify the means, a lot more willing to get her hands dirty in a way. Whereas Diggle is a little bit more. He's got a certain moral code where he won't just do things because the ends justify the mean. So we've seen them conflict and and get divorced and get back together over that before, but they've still sort of made it work, which I think is interesting and something we don't often see, that strikingly different set of morals for two people who are in a like long-term married relationship. So I love seeing that together. Matt Shyamalan says, not take him away, but maybe make him pop up like Lila does. I do feel like there are so many characters. There are way too many characters. I kind of wish they would get rid of some of the NTA ones, though, rather than get rid of some of the OTA ones. We already know, spoiler, that Quentin's leaving. So that's going to kind of get rid of some. And do we know? I don't know if we know for sure that Siren is going to be exclusively on Arrow. I'm wondering if she may also be somewhat on Legends. But by clearing out some of the hero cave, so by the end of the season, we'll be rid of, sadly, Thea, sadly, Quentin, that I, I have to sort of hope that there's going to be a bit more room in the hero area, and maybe we'll get rid of one or two of NTA, or they'll be more sporadic, or they'll have their own thing. I don't know. And then we also know Roy is returning next season, so that'll take up the hero spot. Ooh. Stormy says, I can't see the show without Oliver, Felicity, and Dig. They're the reason I started watching the show. Same. Amanda says, Lila is Oliver's female version. I love her. Yeah, she is. You're right. Rengoku says, yes, Lila is awesome. If she wasn't the head of Argus, I'd want her to be on the team. She would make a good team member. She makes a good team sort of liaison. Rengoku also says Paul Blackthorne leaving plus Sarah guest starring equals yeah, I think we kind of all know where that's going. Stormy says yeah. Sadly, I see Lance dying. That's a great place to end. We'll end on a expected death, and we'll have, by the time we get together next week to talk about this, we'll know what end befalls Mr. Quentin Lance. And if you guys have any other comments, questions, theories leading up to the finale, let me know on Twitter. I will see you same time, same place, here to talk about all your thoughts. Your thoughts were fantastic this week. Here to talk about all of them after the finale. Are you excited? I'm excited. This episode made me excited for the finale. I'm looking forward to it. So, in the meantime, let me know what you guys think, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.